Newstalk93fm. Real news. Real talk. Heard everywhere.
Welcome back to Fresh Start. We're in our Counterpoint segment. Good credit, bad credit. In this morning, we're having conversation with Creditinfo Jamaica's CEO, Deane, and the Sales and Marketing Manager, Camar Williams. Camar, what has been the response to Creditinfo so far? Are you feeling traction? Are people utilizing this new facility?
Well, we have had a tremendous amount of traction from our subscribers. I think everyone has recognized in our benefit in utilizing the information that has been provided by this report. And as we had pointed out earlier, what it does is to take away that subjective approach to decision making and risk management and apply a more objective approach, which would allow them at the end of the day to manage their risk, reduce their debt portfolio, and of course, apply products and services that can be targeted specifically at consumers and allow the organization to run, of course, efficiently in how they treat with these affairs.
These efficiencies that you're speaking to, give us an idea of how the Creditinfo will allow them to tailor-make their products. Walk us through that.
Well, the benefits and the efficiencies that we speak about are categorizing their risk management, the collection and recovery, their data quality, and of course sales and marketing. But if you look at some of the efficiencies, I mean, right now, with the introduction of the Bureau, these institutions would of course be required to use less documents. And by utilizing less documents and having information available, of course, that stimulates faster decision making. And then it would, of course, require that there will be no less guarantors for loans because the only information that is needed on their constituents will be at their fingertips. So, I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, those three key fields would cover it. But of course, the benefits of the Bureau are vast and wide. And so, I mean, if you talk about the risk management component, I mean, we're speaking about identification and fraud prevention, of course, because those...
I was just about to go there. How are you helping to ensure this? Because especially at this time when we don't have a Data Protection Act yet, and there's been so much talk about identity theft, huh?
Right. I mean, we have been having advanced discussions with various public sources of information to try and see how best we can partner and provide products and services that will allow, of course, the prevention of identity theft. And as these discussions advance, we could speak more about them. Sure.
We'll look forward to that. How are we linking our Creditinfo Bureau here with our sister nations across the Caribbean? Give us the bridging.
We haven't started to look at the linkages in the Caribbean yet. Currently, we are constrained by the legislation for the credit reporting environment. But and so we're starting first with Jamaica, making sure that it works, and then we will now look at the legislation to see what is possible, because remember, the legislation requires consent. Guyana just put their own legislation in place.
This is why I was
have to look and see what their legislation allows, to see whether or not we will be able to link, say, with the Creditinfo that is being established in Guyana, to see whether or not we would be able to get information from Guyana and any of the other territories, because most of them are now moving in the direction of having legislation surrounding the Credit Bureau.
Why I asked that, Mr. Megan, is because, for example, Sagicor and oh gosh, what's the other insurance company again? Look at the fact that
Guardian, right?
Yes, Guardian, Barbados and Trinidad, are the headquarters of those former local companies in a sense, eh? Right. So this is the reason why I had raised a matter, and particularly because you had said that Creditinfo was going into Guyana. So clearly there's a movement of a network that's developing across the islands.
No, well, Creditinfo could have gone into Guyana even without being in Jamaica. They just saw decided a strategic decision. But our legislation currently actually allows companies that have similar shareholding and similar clients to share information between themselves. So Sagicor Guyana or Sagicor Trinidad could share information on joint clients between themselves under our legislation now. They wouldn't need a credit bureau to do that. The legislation allows that. If they were trying to get information on an individual or a company who is not already a joint client, under our legislation they require permission. So obviously the strategic development of our company is something that we are going to be looking at very seriously. But we just need to get Jamaica up off the ground first and make sure that any initial teething pains are minimized, that the learning curve for all the credit information providers is dealt with adequately, and then we will look outward. Certainly Jamaica is positioned to do that. We are going to be the hub for the information being held for Guyana and for Barbados, and we will be assisting them with their technical implementation, because the year of implementation that we have had has stood us in very good stead. So in terms of the data protection, as you mentioned, everybody's so concerned about that.
Certainly.
I mean, we have engaged with the Tier 3, the only Tier 3 data storage facility in the region to store our data, and all of the encryptions, all of the security, all of the due diligence that needed to have been done to ensure that all the information that we have is protected has been done. So there is a high comfort level, but we are not going to be, lax or just accepting of the fact that we have put things in place. We'll be constantly monitoring. The audit trail will be there. The Bank of Jamaica is our supervising authority. I think everybody knows that they are so diligent in what they do. And then our own auditors themselves will also be auditing our audit capabilities, because we know that the protection of the data that we are going to get that has been entrusted to us is absolutely paramount.
But given that we do not have a Data Protection Act in place yet, what have you used as your benchmark?
Well, we use the Credit Reporting Act as our guideline for everything, and if you read the Credit Reporting Act, you will see that it is extremely protective of the consumer. Yes, the institutions can send the information over to us under the authority of the Act, but no one can pull the information that is in that database without the consumer knowing about it and the consumer agreeing to it. The consumer also has the right under the legislation to get one free credit report every year, so that they have the opportunity to look at the information that's in that credit report and ensure that it is correct. And there is a whole process for them lodging a complaint, the time frame within which we as the credit bureau have to respond to their challenge to the integrity of the information, the time frame within which we have to get that potentially incorrect information verified and respond to them that yes, it is correct, or no, it is not correct. And if it's not correct, there is a further time within which we have to correct that report, contact every institution that may have pulled that report before we knew there was incorrect information, let them know that the information was correct, issue them the correct report. So believe me, the framers of the legislation made sure that the consumer was protected.
Let's say John Mary is going to be borrowing some money from an institution, shortly from now. Would she be able to, before that meeting, see what her credit report is?
Of course.
She could just...
if she has already got her free credit report, then she can come in and pay to get a report, because the credit reports, the information in there is updated with great frequency. Ideally, we can update all information in a credit report on a daily basis or every 24 hours, but certainly no less than 1 month. So the institutions, depending on their capability to send us the information, are updating constantly. So if somebody paid off a loan 2 weeks ago, and their institution has been updating nightly, that update would be in the system. If the institution does it monthly, then it may not get there until 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
So they have that capability to check to see what's happening.
Although
we have gone live, though, not to cut you, Clyde,
yes.
because we're still populating the database with the information from all the signed credit information providers, we are recommending that persons not access their reports until October, even though the credit information providers are starting to pull. We want them to get used to the process of pulling. You know, it's a learning curve. We're in there talking to their credit managers and the risk managers how to pull the reports, how to use the reports, what it means in terms of their lending assessment. So because we're in a learning situation here, we are recommending don't come until, you know, a little later down in the year.
Yeah. I ask because it provides an opportunity for persons to improve their credit score and delay approaching a borrower. So you may realize, oops, I'm not looking so good here. So,
well, remember now, though,
yes.
that we will be getting as much credit history as the institution is able to send over.
No.
So if they're able to send over 1 year's information, that information is already in there.
Yes,
all that the change in behavior is going to do is a movement forward and show that there is a change and there is an upgrade, but it will show whatever misses there were prior to the
yes.
to change.
But what it will also demonstrate is that the individual in more recent times and so on has made a move from being a person with a low score, irregular, to improving themselves over time in terms of the
absolutely correct on that. What it would allow the credit provider to do is ask the right questions.
Yeah.
What happened that allowed this change? And be able to ensure that it is something that is going to be consistent.
Camar, there was something.
And I should also
yes.
add that there's three basic types of information that these credit information providers take into consideration when you're assessing the risk. And the three things are they need to be looking at the recency in terms of how long were these payments or the problems that existed, and importantly, how severe they are. So how serious are they, how they have missed their payments, and last, how frequent, how often these things happen. So even though there may be a history of bad payment, it's not to startle the consumers, because these are some of the factors that would be considered when they're making their determination on how to treat with them and how they see them as how they see their risk to the business.
Persons mustn't see that as conclusive, you're saying, of whether they'll get a loan or not. It may mean the cost of the money may be a little bit more.
Exactly.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly.
And
remember,
I know we were talking about, good credit, bad credit.
Yes.
We don't see credit as being bad. What it really means is that there are different dimensions of credit that advises these subscribers how to view their clients and what sort of products and services to tailor for these clients. It doesn't mean that because I have a low score that I will be denied a loan.
Yes.
Certainly our report does not tell you exactly what to do. It's for you to be informed and how you decide to treat with those individuals. It may very well mean that consumer may get a product that could be charged at a higher interest rate, or perhaps that customer may be monitored a little more closely than, say, someone who has a higher credit score. And so, the concept of good score, bad score.
Well, we thank you for that clarification, Camar. It certainly will help those of us who have to get used to this new environment. Camar Williams and Megan Deane, thank you so much for sharing this conversation this morning with us on the Creditinfo Jamaica's going live, so to speak.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thank you very much.
Okay, well, good. Well, that's it. We take a short break from Counterpoint and then we move on to our hashtag feature.